Hello, we're here with National REIA today, and I have with me my friend, former State Representative Dale Mallory, and we're here to discuss not only community, but community outreach and what that means in the minority community. And what we want to do is kind of frame this in the idea of a phrase that Martin Luther King Jr. would say, and it's this: I look to a day when people will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And what we really want to focus on is, you know, in some sense, can we even say that nowadays? There's a just fear of, what can I say? Can I say the word minority? Do I not say that? What can we not say, while at the same time having a structured outreach?
You know what, Charles, and that's a good point, because you know, that whole discussion on how to address the African American community is important. For one, you know, there was a period, I guess, where you would call a person a black person or a colored person or, you know, minority, and I know that on my birth certificate it says colored.
Okay.
But in the 70s, you know, we were called, you know, black, and then it turned into, you know, Negro, and then African American, and really that whole discussion is still up in the air. But
in my political correct bells in my head go off, and I go, what do I say? Can I can't say any of that, can I?
Well,
and how do we do some of that outreach then?
There has to be an education on all of it, on the whole discussion and comfort level, because especially now when there's a lot of tension in the air, you know, there's this feeling of a lack of fairness. You know, there's this impression that is, you know, us against them, and that, you know, we'll never be able to climb to that level that, you know, that the majority community, you know, lives well in. So, you know, and that's a start. That communication between the cultures, and also the communication within the community itself.
Well, and to that point, it's interesting because we want to make sure we're doing outreach, and part of what we want to do is talk about, what does outreach mean? We found data-wise in National REIA, as a percentage of membership, minorities are actually lower than they would be nationally across the board. However, the participation rates of the minorities that are involved are far higher than one would expect. And that's a good thing, and we're kind of looking at now how do we increase that, and how we do the outreach on that.
Well, that means you're doing something right.
Okay.
Okay? You're doing something right. If you have that kind of balance, if you have you know, successes in one area, and then you see other areas that, you know, need improvement, you know, it could be, and I guess what you're saying is, at the introductory level you see more participation, and at the success level you see I guess a more fine-tuned participation. So that means that, you know, the people who have elevated to that level have learned, and, you know, and probably paid more attention.
And participating.
Yeah,
and definitely involved.
But there has to be a comfort level there without barriers. Okay.
Well, and we'll kind of come back to the barrier side of it.
Right.
Let's talk about, how do we bring in more of minority community, whether it's in the African American community, Indian community, Hispanic community, and I'm sure I'll get in trouble for leaving somebody out. But
yeah,
in doing our outreach, how do we do that better? What does it look like?
For one, there are always, you know, this impression of the 70s, and I find that this has been a barrier for a long time. People feel that, okay, if I get into business, if I invest, then where's that government money? Where's that grant money? And that's what I faced as a state representative, you know, for those 8 years, you know, before I was term limited. But people want grant money, but they don't even know how to apply. Okay. Where you probably have successes at a level of applying for grant money, some of that needs to be explained. It should not be left in the hands of people they think are, you know, here come these people that represent those people, and these people have kind of ignored us, and then they went and got all this money and gave it to that group and not us.
Well, like I say, even as we get into these people and those people, and that's where everybody starts to get real nervous and like, okay, yeah, so what does that mean? But we talked about some organizations that our REIA associations can reach out to. African American Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, but you know,
and what does it look like to reach out to them?
But even with those organizations, you can't just reach out to the leaders. You know, you have to reach out to their, to their participants, which means, there again, that whole communication piece has to be there. You know, you can't just say, I'm gonna go talk to the head of it, and then this guy's gonna go back and tell all of his people, because that's imaginary.
Right.
You know, what you do is you approach them and say, hey, I'd like to talk to your users of your organization.
Right.
And then if you had to schedule your own meeting through them, but you yourself did the inviting, and that means you look at all those organizations, Charles, you look at all of them, and you say, okay, I want to deal with you as that leader, but I want to talk to each organization that you represent, or that you work with, and then I want to reach all their people.
And that's getting in before their groups, meeting with the larger group.
You have to do the work. I mean, if you want to make a difference, as a non-minority, you have to do the work.
Okay.
I just find that some people conveniently take a picture with somebody and say, hey, I talked to Johnny Johnson, and he says it's okay, and then you have a meeting and you have a low turnout, and that's what
You didn't reach out to more people, and it's about that communication relationship.
Exactly right. It's a terrible thing, and people just they don't want to admit it.
Okay. So, looking at some of the minority groups, looking at some of the minority papers, outreaches, different sources within the community is important.
Right.
And not just talking to the heads, but talking to, maybe it's going and showing up at some of the different meetings, doing invites through those meetings, and letting them know, here's our calendar, and part of it's just saying, we're here and we're open, right?
Yeah,
we're available.
With Charles, just like anything else, you have to establish relationships.
Okay.
Okay, you have to establish relationships with people. You can't, it's one thing to talk to somebody and say, hey, like, this is what we have for you. This is what we're laying out to you guys. Come participate in it. And it's another one to say, hey, hi, my name is Charles. Nice to meet you. What obstacles have you faced? How can we help?
Okay.
How can we help?
So let's talk about that. One of the things we kind of mentioned earlier was we were talking about minority incubators.
Right.
And that may be a good resource as well. A lot of our members are between 45 and 65 years of age.
Yes.
So how do we reach that group of folks there in that 45 to 65 that are thinking they're full-time and doing, I need to get involved in real estate.
Okay.
And I want to do more, but I'm not sure, I don't know what I don't know at this point.
Okay, what you do for one is you relate to those people. It's just like, I worked at GE aircraft engines for 25 years, okay? Hey, the guys that I knew, a lot of machinists, a lot of welders, guys and those engineers. And these guys, they pride themselves on things, and a lot of these guys are retiring early. And I've talked to some that have talked about having a business with a food truck. They don't want to go stand around in Walmart and greet people after they retire.
Right.
And I'm serious. And some of them have money that they saved up through stocks and through,
just savings in general.
Just savings.
Ready to go.
And they reached a point and said, hey, it's time for me to do something different. I like to be as well off as these people that I see.
Right.
And those are people like real estate investors, and also it's kind of like hey, you have a GE work ethic, you have a Procter & Gamble work ethic. Tell us a little bit about what you have done.
Okay.
Because as much as somebody might think of a blue collar worker as some lowly worker, he's skilled in his own profession.
I was going to say, whether it's the engineer or the person who's
Yes.
doing even the blue collar,
Yes.
because those are all skills that are really essential if you're doing real estate redevelopment and rehabbing properties and buildings. Those are all essential skills. And we're talking about folks who are licensed, trained, certified, or
Yes.
have experienced engineers. And those are members, quite frankly, for us that we want to reach out to.
Yes, and engineers, something at my time at GE, the thing that I did learn, Charles, is that, everything comes apart. I can look at anything in this room and show you how it comes apart.
Right.
I mean, not unless it has some kind of seamless weld, and then I would have to find it and show you where it was put together.
Right.
Okay.
So Dale, as we're talking about that outreach, as it were, and maybe I should say it this way, is incorporation. Incorporating folks in And, okay, so they came into a meeting and now we're going, okay, how do we help them? What's the best outreach? And let me ask you that question. Is there a them? Is there not? Is it, you know, in one sense, I don't want to look at color of skin. I want to look at content of character, and these are folks, but in our society, there's all this baggage. So we have this, and we,
Okay.
So,
well, tell me this. Tell me
yeah.
this. Okay. When you get a room full of minorities, do they ask a lot of questions?
let's say, typically not.
Okay, and that's the first thing is you know, and being a minority.
And now that I just stereotyped there.
Well,
And we always have concerns. The fact is, if it were a large group of whites,
Oh,
maybe.
man. Well, you know,
Maybe.
depending on what the issue is.
If it is.
And what you find, you know, with minority community, they want to know where the money is. You know,
Okay.
well, where's the money? And that question always comes up. And but you imagine.
We all want to know that
Oh, yeah,
question.
and that's true. And,
Know that answer.
but Charles, let me tell you, you know, in some people's minds, they think that you don't worry about that stuff. I mean, you already said, you know, you don't have to go find. You already got it. I'm trying to get it.
Right.
You know, so.
Well,
so,
and part of that is looking at, if you've got a good project, showing it to folks.
Yes.
Good,
yes.
good quality
Yes.
brings quality.
Yes.
And if you've got good project and good
Yes.
program, then what we can do is actually, it's going to draw money.
Yes.
And part of that's the difference between a scarcity mentality and there's a plenty mentality.
Okay.
If you bring in a good project, it's going to get funded.
Let me tell you one thing that I always work with, were testimonials. Testimonials by people who have succeeded. You say that you have this certain percentage of people who have excelled.
Mhm.
That means that, you know, not to embarrass them or anything, you stand there and kind of say, hey, you know, we've got this percentage of people who have succeeded through
Right.
this effort. And here's a quick story on what they did. Or I went from, you know, this 2-bedroom house to, you know, a 12-unit.
Right. Or else they have 8
Okay.
single-family homes
Okay.
now.
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
than
I
just
got
one.
8, right. And then people look and say, well, how did you do it? You know, you're a minority just like I am. How did
Right.
that person do it? And you know, but back to my point, you know, you being a non-African American, you know, and you're in a room full of African Americans, that's right.
Okay, I am.
But you're in a room full of African Americans,
Right.
and you stand there and say, hey, you know, for one, it's not us against you.
Right.
See, sometimes you have to break the ice.
Okay.
And that's what doesn't happen a lot of times. This tension just, it hangs in the room like a fog.
Right.
And everybody tries to ignore it.
Okay.
Okay? And those are the kind of obstacles you have to overcome to get that kind of participation, because it's, you know, it's really prevalent right now. It's really prevalent, you know, that you know, that black people think that they're not getting a fair shake all the way around.
Right.
All the way around. And the tension is high. That's why I applaud anybody who is trying to assist the minority community in success. And
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. One of the things we typically have, and some associations have it on a regular programming of mentoring. Other folks kind of do it as a ad hoc. You come in and meet and just try to meet up, and typically a mentor relationship develops somewhere along the line. Is that a real benefit for increasing minority participation in an association, is to have an actual mentor program in place?
it is. And you know what, but what is also helpful is when you can kind of break people off into groups, you know, and it depends on the structure of your meetings. And then the follow-up communication. I'll tell you something, you know, the thing about the minority community is nobody wants to appear to be dumb.
Okay.
Okay, so they're not gonna stand in front of
It's
the crowd and
across the
say,
board.
hey, I don't know how to fill out one of those forms. You know, I don't know how to do this. And they'll walk out of your meeting and not take, you know, a whole heck of a lot from it. And you know something, some people sit there and take notes.
Right.
And then if you don't have that kind of crowd, then you have handouts.
Okay.
And whichever direction, because, you know, as an organization, you should have a good idea of where you want these people to be. You see the ones who have succeeded. You know how you've done it. You know, you have to take away that myth of all these advantages that are out there for you and not them.
Okay.
Okay? And that part is important, because, you know, oh man, you can walk into a bank and get a loan. I can't get anything. You know, yours is to clear the air. Everybody, we know that there's a disparity here. We're not here on a crusade. We're here to assist you in being a part of something.
Well, like I say, and as a REIA chapter, one of the things we want to make sure we're focused on is networking, education, and
Yes.
opportunities.
Yes.
And that's what we're all about, is giving those opportunities. So even though we come in to a meeting, we may not know where everybody's at in the meeting, but what we can do is say, by the end of this, we want to make sure people walk away with X, Y, and Z information.
Okay.
So if we don't see note takers, we need to be making sure that we've got handouts for folks.
Where you have a real impact is when people feel like they've been heard or they participated.
Okay.
And that is why in the past, when I had meetings, these are 3x5 cards. You have the moderator, and these people can anonymously write their questions down, and they don't appear to be dumb. And you say, well, somebody said that they don't know how to fill out the basic form, and they've never gotten a building permit before.
Right.
Okay, so then that is where you have the experts. We've done that in the past with panels. We have all the experts lined up, and then they say, okay, well, I'll take that one. In order to get a permit, you have to have this, you have to have that.
And walk them through that process.
And if you have a problem with that, then you need to talk to Charles over here, and he's going to help you through that process. And then the people sit there, and they won't say it was me, but they'll sit there and say, I better talk to Charles.
And figure out how to do that. Right?
Oh yeah, and these are these are small things in the minority community. People, I attend a lot of meetings and have just like you.
But it may be a small thing, but if you don't know how to fill out the proper paperwork, that's a heck of an obstacle. And
Yes.
with some of the things we're dealing with real estate, a small obstacle may become your deal's not getting done, or there may be ramifications in the sense of legal consequences or financial consequences.
You said in taxes, those small obstacles turn into this humongous fear. I mean, it's just,
Right.
These people leave your meetings and say, I'm not going to do that. They'll throw me in jail.
Yeah. And that's what we want to overcome, is we want to make sure people see, here's the avenue of how you get this done. And it's not easy, but it can be done, and here's how you do it. And we want to make sure
But you'll find that once you do that, once you break the ice, the successful people in the room who are minorities, are liable to stand up and say, I've got a story to tell. You're right, I dealt with that before.
Right.
And this is what I did, and that's why I'm here today. It's because I was able to overcome that fear. I was able to really dive in there, and then I saw it grow. I saw it mushroom. Now I've become this successful entrepreneur that that you guys have assisted me in to become. So those are the kind of things that really need to happen if people are serious about minority participation. Because Charles, it is not happening. It is not happening that way in a lot of areas, and nobody doubles back to address it. They just let it ride, and then it turns into bad things. It turns into hatred.
Tension.
It turns into
Right.
this dislike and this mistrust.
Well,
And
if we don't put knowledge in there, and we don't make,
Yes,
then
and they're not
people fill it in with
they're not going to crawl
fears.
to anybody. They're not going to crawl to you and say, I'm so dumb that I really don't know how to do this, because they have an idea.
Right.
They have an idea, and everybody has dreams.
That's
Okay, everybody has
well,
dreams.
and we want those dreams to be fulfilled through our local REIAs.
And that's
plain
beautiful.
and simple.
And and you guys have done, from the statistics that you've given me, you've done a good job. You've gotten off to a heck of a start and path, and it just needs to be widened. It needs to be widened.
And so what else can we do? I mean, we talk about kind of the education side of it. One of the barriers to overcome, make it, even asking questions is lower the threshold, lower the pain point of
Right.
me standing up saying, excuse me, I don't know this.
Right.
Am I asking a dumb question?
The embarrassment of it.
And the reality is, if there's 10 other people in the room, 9 other ones are thinking the same thing, going, how do I do this?
Right.
And eliminating that part of it. So you mentioned to me before about your father has a statement on studying education and what it takes to do that. How is that?
That's right. For one, he believed in retreats. Dad, he believed in people. You got your meeting here, but then, let's go off to a retreat. Lock the doors, and we all brainstorm. And we used to do that at GE. We came up under the STAR system. Black belts and continuous improvement. Taking ownership, all that good stuff. But then Dad said one thing that was very important. He said, the thing you have to remember, study long, and move fast.
Okay.
Hey, study long, move fast.
Study long and move fast.
That's right.
I appreciate that. And you know, it's interesting when you talk about, we talk about a lot about relationship building, because
Yes.
a lot of business is about putting your team together, putting your relationships together, and whether it's at the board level or even making it available for members of the association to come together and say, you know what, we want to be able to take it so we can literally break down and say, Dale, you mentioned something the other day and I have a question for you. How did you do that?
Yes.
Not just a panel answer, really walk me through it. That allows me to chew on it, because I may not ask that question, I may not even fill out the card, but I can build that relationship with you where later on I can pick up the phone and say, hey, Dale, well, this is Charles. You may not remember me from, oh yeah, okay, and start that conversation and build that relationship so we can overcome those obstacles.
Yes. I mean, you would really be surprised at the minorities who kind of feel that, you know, you need to partner, you know, with a non-African American, you know, hey, with a white guy in order to be successful. He's done it, you know. But you have to have the right team. You have to have the right moderators. You have to have people who have a feel for the room. They can look around and say, you know, okay, I see some of these people don't really understand. Let me kind of pick their brain a little bit and say, you know, hey, some of you may not know how to fill out a form. Some of you may have had problems with taxes. You know, we can explain some of that to you. Maybe not here, but we're gonna have a retreat, and you guys attend, and then a lot of your questions will be answered. You always give them something to look forward to. You know, you don't let people walk out of the room and, you know, okay, see you later. You know, glad you came, and you know, and then they get out and say, what did he say?
Well, and one of the things is even from an anonymous survey side, even saying, are there tax issues? Are there credit issues?
All of that.
All of that.
All of that.
What's the best thing we can help you with? And do it anonymously so that people can fill it out and say, I'd really like to have, my credit score stinks. How do I get it improved? This is a way to do it.
Charles, the first thing you tell them is that, hey, there's no, like a lawyer explained to me a long time ago, he said, Dale, back in the 70s, you know, they would, when they had all this money to give away, you know, those programs people complain about all the time, a bushel of money and set it out in the middle of the woods on a stump and walk away.
Right.
You know, and that was true.
There's all kinds of regulations on money now.
But our community is still in this mindset of, you know, oh man, let me go get some of that government money, and then I'll carve my check out first and then work with the rest, and you know, and if it fails, you know, nobody's going to say anything. And I dealt with this as a state rep, you know, people, hey, where's that grant money? But then when you do have grant money, they're afraid to apply. Do you understand that? Hey, they're afraid to apply.
Wow.
And you talk about crazy, because, you know, all during the time I was in the state, and I would say, hey, you guys come apply to the state. You know, there's plenty of money up here. But boy, the fear, the fear.
Right.
So it's kind of like, if there were people, I mean, these people, they don't, you know, there are no, you know, minority lobbies. Nobody goes to places and says, hey, I'm lobbying for, you know, for the minority community. It is just such a crazy thing to have done 8 years, you know, at the State House, and to see how little some people try to even, you know, learn.
So let me ask you this, as a kind of a final takeaway. One of the things that we need to make sure, if we're really going to be supportive of minority community, minority participants that become members,
Yes.
is making sure they understand, here's how you can get to the revenue, here's how you can get to the funds, whether it's introducing from the hard money lender side to
Yes.
even to say,
Yes.
here's how you pitch the proposal.
Yes. Yes.
And making sure that they understand, here's how you pitch the proposal. This is what it needs to look like from the business plan to some of these
Exactly
other
right.
pieces, and walking through some of that.
Exactly right, Charles. And you have a couple of bankers. You know, you go find some, you know, minority guy who was in the banking business, and you make sure that he can relate. And I can sit here and be very realistic with you. You know, you can go grab somebody whose skin is brown and doesn't relate to brown people.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
That is the one farce that really needs to be dealt with, because, you know, you can tell how a person relates to people. Maybe you want to do surveys after your meetings, okay, and say how helpful was this to you, without hurting anybody's feelings. And then,
Right.
you know, the guy that you had present before them, they
Right.
say, hey, I didn't get much out of it. It lets you know. And you're right, some things you can't touch on. You're not going to stand there and start tension in your own meetings and
Right.
start to talk about the disparities between blacks and whites. You know, what you do is take the color out of it. it all turns green.
Right. And
Here
that's what
is
we like
how
is that green.
you succeed. And here's how you go from, hey, I don't see any black or white people in here. All I see is people who want to be green.
Exactly.
Okay? I mean, and this is the real discussion that needs to happen, because as tense as things are out here today, in 2016, and as much as you see the political climate changing, because people want change.
Right.
Hey, the minority community wants change. They want it badly, but they don't want to beg for it. Hey, they want to be treated equally. When you get me in the room, forget that I'm black.
Right.
You know, just show me the way, because you never know what that person has. And some people are well situated. Some people have those capabilities. They just run into problems, and they just want you to relate. They want you to touch on it. You know, hey, I filed bankruptcy before. You know, maybe some of you have, and they go, oh, I did. You know, he's right.
Been there, done that. Now
yeah.
How do I move from here to get to fulfill that dream?
Move forward. I had tough times, and you know, those breaking the ice speeches, and it all depends on the structure of your meetings. If you just, you know, you have some wizard up top who just, you know, here's how we're going to tell them how it goes, and he stands there and dictates all this stuff. You know, if you don't have this, you probably won't be able to. If you don't have this, no discouraging words.
Right.
You
Say,
know,
well,
positive.
to come back to kind of Martin Luther King's comment, we want to move past the color of the skin. We
Come
want to
to
focus on the
the
green.
That's right.
And how do we help get everybody to that green level? So,
And that's right, Charles, without them being embarrassed,
Yeah.
without them feeling like, you know, they're begging for something, because, you know, something, you will find that, you know, like the minority community believes in a lot of the things the majority community does. Hey, they believe in law and order. Hey, they believe in entrepreneurship. They believe in family. They believe in, you know, little government. You know, all of those things, but it always turns into something when you take this character, you know, vilify him, and then all of a sudden everybody looks like him. You know, and that's the thing with minority community. They don't want you to look at them and judge them just like you're saying Martin Luther King, by the color of their skin. Oh, here comes, you know, the black guy who's, you know, who's after some money.
well, and part of it is also, and this is one of those things I think is a delicate issue, but I want to make sure we mention it, is how do we do a reach out to the minority community without it being patronizing? You know, and do a authentic outreach to say, hey, we want you involved, we want to do this, without saying, oh, here's the, and because I see that in community sometimes, it's like, oh, now we're, and
Okay.
that's just, to me, it's dishonest, it's, yeah.
Okay, it's like
bad
this,
across
but
the board.
but it's like this. Then what you do is you reach out to all of those, you know, those leaders who claim to be the leaders. You just let them know, hey, look, we're an organization that believes in, you know, success and fairness. If you ever want to play it safe, use fairness. Okay, I always say, hey, we believe in everything being fair,
Gotcha.
you know, and fairness. So, you know, you reach out to the leaders, hey, this is our mission statement. This is what we believe. We believe that anybody can succeed through entrepreneurship. You know, anybody who has the drive, anybody who is willing to learn, and you'll find that people will gravitate to it, Charles, and just kind of, and you have a group right there, and they gravitate
And that's
to
what
it,
we want to do.
and that's where they are.
We want
You
to
know,
work with that group,
yeah,
educate them, give them opportunities,
you
build a
want the
mentor
best,
and
you know
networking.
something, you don't need a room full of, you know, 100 bad people.
Right.
40 good ones will do.
Right. And we want to make
Okay?
sure we're doing that.
That's why things driven by race are worthless. You know, I know good whites, good blacks, you know,
Right.
some, you know, other nationalities that, you know, I never really, you know, grew up around. You know, and I grew up in downtown Cincinnati. You know, been there all my parents grew up in downtown Cincinnati. I'll tell you now, the schools that I attended, you know, when I was young, they were predominantly black schools. You know, my elementary schools, junior high, you know, into my high school. Then I attended a vocational program at the zoo, where we pioneered that program in 25 of us. That's why I know that this is changing. Okay?
Looks like a flower.
Oh yeah, well, I spent time in the garden crew. But, and I was the only African American in that class. Okay? I was the only one, but I sat there and learned. And, you know, and I pride myself on knowing what I know. But the tension that was there, and we didn't have, you know, to be honest with you, we didn't have other nationalities anywhere around.
Right.
You know, it's like the newspapers, black and white. So, you know, all of this, you know, this tension, Martin Luther King, you know, I remember the day the King got killed. I mean, I stood there and stared into the sky, Charles. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what was going to happen to us.
Right.
Okay? When I was young, in the 60s, you know, I was born in 59. I remember Glen Street, you know, you talk about the National Guard. You know, my sister had me by the hand. She's the oldest of all of us. And here comes the Jeep with the machine gun on it. You know, and this is the kind of stuff we grew up watching. So then, you know, you kind of watch through the 70s, and then you wonder when something's going to change. So, you know.
Well, and if we want things to change, rather than just keep using change as a generic word, we've got to give some form and structure to it.
Yes.
And I think that's where we're looking at from the mentoring side, education side, making sure we have systematic outreach beyond just leadership.
Yes.
And kind of taking the points you've mentioned, and then also providing, how you want to call it, anonymous ways of actually answering questions, anonymous
Yes.
ways, lower the pressure or pain threshold to achieve solutions and provide opportunities.
As a state rep, you know, I signed off on a lot of proposals. I mean, we gave millions here, millions there, you know, and you know, a lot of proposals that go to the state. But then, you know, historic tax credits. A lot of people I know don't know a thing about that stuff. They have no idea. You would know. But with you being, you know, in a real estate profession, it's something they could put their finger on. And if you told these people, okay, tell you what, you know, if you guys are really capable, if you guys, you know, work with us, we can show you how to purchase a property, how to do this, how to do that. And we have a helpline. You know, we have our own helpline we call Leave a Question.
The helpline is also part of that is mentoring. We also have
Yes.
email process for that as well.
Yes.
So we can
Yeah.
make sure we advertise that as well.
Yes.
We need to wrap up here today.
Okay, it's been a pleasure.
Representative
talking
Mallory,
about
greatly
it.
appreciate you coming out today.
Thank you very much,
And we look
Charles.
forward to following up with everyone. Got a variety of issues and ways to improve our outreach to the minority community and better incorporation across the board. Thank you very much.